Good morning. I'm Ciara King from Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council, and you're very welcome along to our information session. I'd just like to introduce my colleague Carolyn Brown, also from the Arts Office in Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council. And then this morning with us, we have Kieran Kilbride, who is the Operations Manager at Music Network, and Deirdre Moynihan, who's the Programmes Manager. And Deirdre is just going to take us through the brief and outline the requirements, and then we'll have time for some questions. So I'll just hand over to Deirdre. Thanks.
Thanks a million, Ciara. Hi, everybody. So as Ciara said, I'm going to start by just sharing some information about the scheme and the guidelines. This will take about 15 minutes or so, and then I'll be joined by Ciara and Carolyn again, and we'll chat through any questions you might have. So I'll be referring to the guidelines as we're going along, and if you haven't already downloaded them from our website or the Arts Office website, Kieran is just going to put a link into the chat there, so you can download it directly from there if you'd like to do so now. As I said, if you have any questions, just type them into the Q&A stream there as we go along, and we'll see them all at the end. Just to mention that this session is being recorded, so if you've anyone who you know would be interested to apply to the scheme, they will be able to view this session back later, so do let them know to keep an eye out for that on Music Network and the Arts Office's social media channels. So I'm going to share my screen now, and if you want to download the guidelines while I'm doing that. Okay. So this is the Laoghaire-Rathdown Musicians in Residence 2023 information session. The scheme is jointly funded by Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council and the Arts Council, and it's managed by Music Network. So the key aim of the scheme is to provide opportunities to develop and showcase new work, and this may be compositional or performance focused. It could be creation of brand new material, or it might be about developing new or existing collaborations. So various approaches you can take there. There'll be 3 residencies in 2003. 2 of these will be for established musicians or groups, and the available budget for these 2 residencies is $5,000 for each residency. And there's 1 opportunity for an emerging individual musician or group, and the available budget for that residency is €3,000. A really important thing to remember for everybody is the closing date for applications, and that is Tuesday, the 7th of March at 2 p.m. So you must submit your application before that time. There are 3 residencies, as I mentioned, and so just to look at when they will happen. So you can apply for any of the 3 periods, and if you're available for all, you would just list which would your order of preference be. So the first residency will happen between the 17th of April and the week of the 5th of June. The second residency from the end of June to nearly the end of August. And the third residency will happen between the 28th of August and the 9th of October. Then looking at who can apply. So as we said, there's established and emerging musicians or groups. And then really important, you can be working in any genre. So it's very open in that respect. Some additional notes just to mention. So all applicants for these residencies must either be able to demonstrate a strong connection to Laoghaire-Rathdown. That might be that you're originally from the area, you might be living in the area or currently working in the area, or indeed have studied a relevant discipline in Laoghaire-Rathdown. Alternatively, you must be able to propose a project that has a key connection with Laoghaire-Rathdown. So your project might be inspired by the area, or you might engage with the area. And then just one more thing to mention there. If you have previously been awarded as an established musician in residence, you cannot apply to the scheme again. And if you've previously been awarded as an emerging musician in residence, you are only eligible to apply for the established musician in residence. So looking at the aims and objectives, so the primary aim is to provide opportunities for musicians to create and develop new work. And then additional objectives would be to showcase that new work, to help musicians develop skills in relation to collaboration and presenting of work. It's also about supporting the career development of musicians through advice or mentorship, and we'll look at that in a little while. Another aim would be to provide the public with access to your work. So an opportunity to gain insight into your creative process and to access high quality performances. And then the last thing just to mention here is a key aim is that artists are fairly remunerated for their work. So you just need to be mindful of that when planning your project and putting together your budget. So the residencies will be part-time in format and they'll take place over a 6 to 8 week period. These will be non-consecutive dates usually, and all of those dates would need to be discussed directly with the Arts Office. The activities would take place in the studio, the DL or Lexicon studio, or another location in Laoghaire-Rathdown, and that again would be discussed directly with the Arts Office. So flexibility around location and scheduling of dates is really important. Just to look at some past awardees, here we have Dave Flynn, who's performing here with a professional guitar quartet in the DLR Lexicon studio. And Dave Flynn was awarded in 2020. And his project, he composed and performed new music, Dunleary guitars, and he collaborated with other professional musicians and also engaged with a local guitar school. So just to give you an idea of previous projects. Moving on then to, here you see Kevin Brady, who was also awarded in 2020. And he is seen here with the Tommy Halferty Trio. And they chose to explore a new body of work and to also expand their existing collaboration from a trio to a quartet. So lots of ways you can put together your proposals. So looking then at the difference maybe between the established residency and the emerging residency, and also what both entail. So the established residency, or the residency for established musicians and groups, it involves up to 10 development days within a 6 to 8 week period. And you saw the 3 different periods earlier. You're also asked then to create 4 digital updates, which will be shared on social media. And these would be short video diaries. And so when we spoke about providing insight into your work and sharing your creative process with the public, this is a key way in which you would be doing that during your residency. There is also a concert, public performance presented in DLR Lexicon or another location in Laoghaire-Rathdown. Music Network will offer advice and support to you throughout your residency, as will the Arts Office. There'll be mentoring. If you choose to have mentoring sessions with external experts, you can certainly include that in your program of work, especially if you feel it's crucial to your professional development. And you just must include the fees for those mentors within your project budget. At the end of the residency, you'll be asked to complete a short project report and also to participate in an external arts review at the end of the residency. And then just to mention again that the maximum available budget for your residency is €5,000, and that is inclusive of VAT, if that is applicable to you. So comparing that with the emerging residency, the residency for emerging musicians and groups, I won't go through it all again, just to highlight the differences. So you have here 6 development days within a 6 week period. That's a key difference. And there is an additional element, 1 mentoring session, highlighted there halfway down, 1 mentoring session with Music Network relating to PR and social media that will be offered to musicians who are appointed to the emerging residency. And then at the end, the difference in the budget, it is $3,000 for this residency, again, inclusive of that. So some additional information to make you aware of, again, it's all in the guidelines. So the residency budget must include all associated costs. So this could be the technical equipment if you need it, if you need a sound engineer, fees for collaborating musicians, fees for mentors. If you choose to involve a videographer, you don't have to, of course, but just whatever is involved in your program, all associated costs must be accounted for in your budget. And then just to mention about the studio, the DLR Lexicon studio, it has no in-house technical staff. So if you choose or would like to use the technical equipment in the studio, you would need to engage a professional sound engineer for this purpose. If you'd like to find out more about the studio and the technical setup there, you can let us know and we'll be very happy to send you the studio technical information guide. And then just lastly to mention, all projects, you must have public liability insurance and, if relevant, employer's liability insurance. So you would just need to factor that cost again into your project budget when you're planning your project. So let's take a look now at the selection criteria, and these are really crucial because these are the basis on which your application will be assessed by the panel. So the first of these, artistic quality and track record in music performance or composition, that's weighted at 45%. And just to mention that in the case of an emerging musician, the demonstrated potential would also be taken into consideration there. Then moving on to the quality and coherence of your proposal. So this would be where you would list your artistic plan and maybe collaborating musicians' ideas on performances or on your performance, all that sort of thing. That's weighted at 30%. And then we have the feasibility of your proposal, weighted at 15%. And this is your approach to collaboration, how you plan to go about it, your approach to rehearsals and to the performance, and really to talk about the feasibility of your project. And just to mention, what would be taken into account there would be the remuneration of artists, and to ensure that that would be fair, that would all go towards or speak towards the feasibility of your proposal. Then finally, 10% is allocated for demonstrated ability in project and budget planning and management. And I would just say to you that it's really important you take all of the criteria into consideration when preparing your application, because it really comes down to small margins at the end of the day. You know, they're very competitive processes, these application processes. And so just be mindful of all criteria when you're putting together your project plan. So now we'll just have a brief look at the application process and the assessment procedure. The application process is fully online. You can visit musicnetwork.ie or dlrcoco.ie for information and to download the guidelines, although if you're here today, you will have downloaded them from the chat stream. When you click on the guidelines, you will find the information to set up a profile on the application portal. It's a very straightforward process. You just register and then you're ready to start filling in your application. You can complete your application in stages. You can save a draft as many times as you like, which is really useful. You can go in and think about different sections and come back. And just when you're completely happy about it, that is when you would, of course, click submit. And once you've submitted your application, you cannot, of course, change it after that. So just be really sure that you're completely happy with it before you submit it. You will receive a confirmation email from Music Network once your application has been successfully submitted. And this is an automated email. So it's really important that you do receive this email. It's confirmation that we have received it. If you don't receive it shortly after submitting your application, do get in touch with us at operations@musicnetwork.ie, because if you haven't received the email, it means we haven't received the application. So there may have been a technical glitch, maybe your internet went down or something, you know, that you mightn't be aware of. So if you don't receive the email, do get in touch. And don't forget to check your spam folder in case it's mistakenly directed there. So as I mentioned, it's completely online process. So hard copy or email applications are not going to be accepted, and late applications will not be possible either. So just to briefly go through the essential support materials, they're all listed in the guidelines, a little bit more detail there as well in the guidelines, but just to briefly go down through them, you're asked to outline your proposed program of work, so your plan and what you'd like to achieve during your residency. You're asked to submit a short statement outlining relevant connections or how your project is inspired by or engages with Laoghaire-Rathdown. We spoke about that earlier. You would be asked to submit a CV and then biographies of any proposed collaborators or mentors if you're choosing to involve either. There is an opportunity to upload 3 sample audio or video links or recordings. You can either upload the audio as MP3s or you can share links to audio recordings or video recordings online. And you are asked to provide information about those recordings, you know, who's involved, what the title of the track may be. If you'd like the panel to listen from a particular point in the track, if it's a particularly long track, do put all of that kind of information into a Word doc and upload that as well. And, you know, this is your opportunity to showcase the very best of what you do. So be really mindful about what you submit there. And the panel will look forward to listening and viewing the videos. You're asked to also upload a 1-minute video clip to briefly outline your goals and what you hope to achieve. And that is something you can record very simply on your mobile phone to summarize your aims for your project. And then two last support materials, your detailed budget for your program, which must, as we said earlier, include all residency costs. And then you're asked to confirm your availability for each residency period you're applying for. So you may only be available for one, and that's fine. If you're available for all three, just list them in order of preference. So just be really mindful of the essential support materials, because all of those need to be submitted in order for your application to be eligible. You can also submit a certain number of optional support materials. This is at your discretion, just if you feel something additional would help to make your case stronger or showcase more clearly what it is that you do or what it is that you hope to achieve, but that is optional. Then just to mention, if you're successful, candidates will be required to undergo Garda vetting. And that is if you are engaging directly with under 18s or vulnerable persons. So just to be mindful that that is something you would need to do if engaging with under 18s or vulnerable persons. And then you're also asked to provide proof of the appropriate insurance, which we mentioned earlier, the public liability and employer's liability. You would need proof of that is in place in order to start or commence your residency. There's additional information at the end of the guidelines in Appendix 1 and 2. I won't go through all of that. It's very clearly outlined in those two sections. So do make sure to read those sections of the guidelines as well. The assessment procedure, very straightforward. A panel will consider all applications received. Successful and unsuccessful applicants will receive notification by email in March. And if you would like feedback on your application, it will be available upon request for 4 weeks following the communication of results. And if you would like feedback, please just email us at operations@musicnetwork.ie. And then we're nearing the end here, just a couple of tips for applicants. I know they sound obvious, but it's just always good to remind ourselves of these things. So read the guidelines carefully. We can't stress that enough, just to make sure you don't miss anything and that you really understand the process. Don't assume assessors are familiar with your work. That's an important point to note. Of course, you may be a very well-established musician, but the panel can only assess the materials that are submitted as part of your application. Ensure audio and visual recordings offer the best representation of your work. So your opportunity to showcase what it is you do. Of course, the information should be clear, concise, and relevant. And then really important, again, just a reminder of that deadline, Tuesday, the 7th of March at 2 p.m. So do submit your application prior to that. If you have any questions, we're going to answer them now, myself, Ciara and Carolyn, but following this session, if you have questions, we'd be very happy to help in whatever way we can. If you email operations@musicnetwork.ie or phone us on 01475-0224. And then just before I end the screen share, just want to let you know that there is a site visit opportunity next Tuesday on the 21st of February. That's at 6 p.m. If you would like to visit the DLR Lexicon studio, you're very welcome to do so. You just need to send an email to arts@dlrcoco.ie with musicians site visit in the subject line, and just to register your interest. And members of the Arts Office, so myself, Ciara and Carolyn and myself will be available on the evening to answer any specific questions you may have. So do let others know about that if they're not in attendance here today as well. Very useful to come and see the space and to chat with us on that particular evening. So I'm going to stop the screen share here. This, by the way, is an emerging musician in residence, Laura Gallagher, whose project was involved projections and electronics. So again, just another example of the variety of types of projects you can put together. So now we have Carolyn and Ciara back. Will I just have a look in the Q&A there and read out the question for you?
Yeah.
So we have two questions here, Carolyn. Can you tell me, in regards to budgeting, what is considered fair remuneration for musicians?
So it in some ways would depend on their career stage. So I think that would be one that might be worth kind of having a chat with Music Network in advance as to what amount would that be. Okay, Deirdre? Just
Absolutely.
if someone's very established, obviously you need to pay them more than if they're, just at the start of their career. And then also just to bear in mind, it would depend on, whether they're going to collaborate with you for the whole time that you're there on site, in which case then you'd be paying them kind of a daily rate, or if it's someone just coming in for a couple of hours for a concert, you obviously might have to factor in prep time. So just kind of, there'd be kind of, I suppose it's a hard question to answer, in that you really do need to consider what they're doing and what career stage they're at.
Absolutely, yeah, that's very true, Carolyn. And I suppose just to say as well, sometimes people forget to put in their own fee. It's very important that you yourself, as the lead applicant, are fairly remunerated as well. So yeah, there's lots to consider, and as Carolyn said, it really, you have to look at all the aspects of the involvement, and it's about people receiving a fair fee. But do get in touch with us, as Carolyn said, and we'd be happy to chat with you. There's just one other question from that lady. Can we include the cost of liability insurance in our budget?
Yeah, we'd expect to see a budget line for insurance in there, definitely. There is various companies that previous musicians and residents have used. We can't kind of advise which one to go for obvious reasons, but we certainly can kind of let you know that there's been, companies that others have found good rates with, and we can give you kind of a couple of names there. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks for that question, or those two questions, Claire. So we have a question from, can we see the names of successful applicants somewhere, and roughly what they did in the lexicon?
Oh yeah, there's details on our website. So if you go to the www.dlrcoco.ie/arts, and there's a section on music, so you can see the previous residencies for the last number of years. There'll be info up there about them. So there's a pretty broad range, and we're open to that. So check out the website for sure.
Absolutely, and there are some video clips and stuff online on the social media channels, aren't there, Ciara, as well, from ourselves and
exactly
yourself. So there's a lot you can look up to see what people have done in the past, which is always helpful to know. Great. So then, public liability insurance, how much roughly should you set aside for this in the budget?
That's hard to call, because insurance is always changing. So I would reckon the best thing to do is just ring around a couple of companies. At a very rough estimate, I'd guess around 400-ish. But it just check out. You could get a couple of quotes, and then what's often happened is applicants might check in with us before they take it out, or they might try a few companies. Some are definitely more competitive than others, but it isn't a one size fits all. So do maybe get a couple of quotes before putting it in this year for your budget.
Yeah, because again, it'll depend. If there's several members in the group, they'd all need to have their own PL. So you might need to have a bigger budget line in there for that. Or if it's just one individual, and it depends as well on what the insurance company deems the activity low risk or high risk. So again, for instance, if your proposal was very low risk, that you were just in the studio space there, whereas if you were planning to, culminate in an outdoor gig, that's a whole different ball game for an insurance company. So just to kind of, it's again, as Ciara said, it's not one size fits all. You just need to have a think about what you're doing and have a chat. Maybe if, there's a couple of companies, just give them a call and ask them for a ballpark. But certainly, as Ciara said, before you pay it, get in touch with myself or Ciara, and we can kind of give you an indication if it's similar to what previous people have paid, or if it's, way out of the range,
Great. I think that is all the questions we have there, unless someone wants to get in with another one there. Is there anything we want to kind of mention while we're waiting to just check if there's any more questions? Anything come to mind?
So there's just one more question there that's popped in saying, does the insurance need to cover the performance or is it just for the residency? It would need to cover everything. Like you need to have PL the entire time you're on site there. So it would be for both really. Yeah. It's just PL
it should be usually standard anyway in the policies. And with an indemnity to Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council and Music Network. But again, it's pretty standard. We haven't had anybody having problems getting them in the past. So just to reassure you of that.
Great.
And I suppose the only other thing to mention is that the other thing that we can organise, and musicians in the past have taken us up on this. I don't know if people are familiar with the Lexicon space, but there are lovely meeting rooms up on level 5. So sometimes there might be capacity either to have an extra few hours just in one of the meeting rooms, or sometimes depending on we've had musicians who've been doing a lot of composition work and actually have found that they would prefer to be up in a meeting room. So there's that option as well, which is worth keeping in mind too.
Yeah, so just to say to everyone, like, make sure that you ask any questions by email or on phone, but don't leave it to the last minute. Please do it a few days in advance, because all of us have kind of busy work schedules and might not be on site in the office every single day. So just to make sure you give us time to respond to you. So certainly contact us a couple of days before the deadline if you do have any queries or questions. But please do feel free to contact us, rather than kind of just put in the application and hope for the best. Like, it's always best to contact us. And just to kind of, as you're making the application, my kind of tip is always think about who you're applying to, that it's a local authority and Music Network. So it's to tailor your application for that. So it's quite different than if you're applying to, say, the Arts Council or Fáilte Ireland or anything. So to really think about who the commissioner is in this case, and, make sure your application answers those criteria that Deirdre talked about earlier. That's really essential. Great. So, and lots of supplementary materials always good. Like, make sure you, as Deirdre said, put in those supplementary materials so we get a real sense of your work is the other kind of really important thing. Just to reiterate. So best of luck to everyone. I hope you get on well with the applications.
Can I just mention one thing? Actually, it just reminded me, Carolyn, just to say, when you are sharing the links to your audio or video, just make sure that they're fully accessible, because sometimes people might share a SoundCloud link and there's a password and we won't be able, the panel won't be able to listen to it. So just a couple of things like that. Be kind of mindful of the way you share things, just that they're fully accessible and that they don't disappear by the time the panel meet to review the applications. So just a small point, but good to be aware of.
Yeah. There is one last question asking about recording studios. No, it's not a recording studio. It's a performance space, but previous musicians and residents have recorded their performances. They've brought in sound engineers at their final concert and have recorded it. So there is a tech spec available, and Kieran has that to share, and that'll give you info around what's up at the desk and stuff in the studio.
Absolutely. And I think that same person has also asked, would this be suitable for hip hop, rap artists? I mean, it's open to all genres.
Yeah, completely open. Yeah,
absolutely. So we look forward to hearing from you. I think
we welcome all genres, so for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Unless there's any more final questions, I guess we impart our best wishes to everybody.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Look, everyone, thanks for coming today.
Thanks a million. Best of luck. Take care.
Bye.